The biggest gains under affirmative action were made by white women, not black folk, but it's always black folk that get the short end of the stick when it comes to how people think about this issue and why they think it's so awful. Also, at the same time, what was going on was that politicians saw what was going on here and they started to use it. There was a North Carolina, North Carolina race with Harvey Gantt, black guy, who was going to beat out, I think it was Strom Thurmond maybe, for Senate. And he had been there a long time, Strom Thurmond, and he got scared. It was like, you mean this man could actually beat me? So what he did was he ran a commercial. And in the commercial, it had different variations on the theme. But basically what you saw was a white blue collar worker, you could just see the hands, being handed by somebody in a suit with a white shirt on, being handed a pink slip, meaning you got to get out of here, you're fired. And the voiceover was something like, I'm sorry, John, to have to see you to go, but we got to hire this black person. What? That drove me crazy when I saw it because it was so illegal. But I knew other people didn't know that. And this was like very close to the election. Well, you know how that election went, right? You know, back into office, and Harvey Gantt did not. That drives me crazy, having worked in the White House and worked on Capitol Hill.
Welcome everyone to Quilted Hearts Chats. We have a wonderful guest here today who is just blazing the trail with ingenuity and technology and serving people who are disabled, but also in the midst of serving someone who's disabled, you're also serving the able. So I want to welcome to our podcast today, Kadon Jackson, who is just an amazing person who we are going to find out lots and lots of information about what he's doing and how he's making a difference in the world. Welcome, Kadon.
Thank you so much for having me, Mrs. Renee and Mrs. Dunn.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kadon, for being here.
Mrs. Dunn, I actually saw the TED Talk that you did, and I was like, I really want to introduce myself to this lady. And I went on to show notes on YouTube, and I looked into the description, and I saw your website, and I was like, I'm going to hear her website. So I hit your website, and you have a chat bot that pops up, and I basically just told you, hey, you are a phenomenal speaker. You seem to be, stalwart in your community, and you seem very passionate about what you are an expert in, and I want to meet you. And you literally sent me an email telling me you'd love to meet me, and we did our first podcast. So that was the
first. And it was your first one.
First one. I did all the editing. I did all the videos and the video editing.
Privilege.
Yeah, the music and the intro and all of that. And a couple of years later, we're here now. So that's actually.
It's more than a couple of years because I met you through Aunt Donnie.
Yeah.
3 years ago.
Really? Was it that long?
It was
3 years ago.
Almost 4 years now. It'll be 4 years in September. So listen, you were already on her radar at that point.
That's right. I hooked all up.
Or me to you. And then, so that means that you had already, done the invitation, had the conversation, had the podcast. I think you were on there more than once, right?
No, we only met once, but we had a blossoming relationship from then. I mean, I see her more than just an educator in a space. I mean, I can literally recite her background to you. But yeah, but more importantly than that, I live by a certain truisms.
Mhm.
One can still and still gain wisdom. So I think one of the things I'm very cognizant of when it comes to Mrs. Dawn is her pearls of wisdom, and I don't take it lightly. You don't really get to sit amongst people with such illustrious careers,
Yeah,
um, with such
exactly.
wisdom, and have
Who are
them
willing
just
to share their
yeah,
wisdom.
just tell you like what
Yeah,
it is. You know what I mean? Like I'm
yeah.
sure she'll go into her background a little bit, but yeah, the fact that I get the privilege every day or whenever I have time or whenever she has time to just kind of bathe in her wisdom and you know pick through her pearls of knowledge. I mean, you can't lose, right? So
That is
I mean,
wild.
that's just how it kind of how it happened.
That's
That is
fantastic.
wild.
What a great
I
testimony.
love and what's so interesting is to see, I sort of when I put out the invitation for you to come onto the podcast, it was based on what I knew you wanted to do and like what your podcast has done. And now, as it turns out, you have gone so far beyond that. You have to tell people what you did because that is absolutely phenomenal. And it's also not only is that in and of itself a phenomenal thing you're doing, but what I love about it is that it also gives people inspiration to realize that every no is not necessarily a no. It's you need to go in another direction because that's what we got for you. So
Rejection is
like what
protection,
happened.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I think to your point, I try to change everything in terms of like things that are negative. Like you said, no to me means new options, new opportunities.
Mhm.
So a little bit about what you're talking about. Um, so I built Quibi. Quibi basically is a mobile app for people with disabilities to find their most essential services in one place. I mean,
How do you spell it? Quibby?
Quibbi.
Huge.
Quibi.
Uh, why is it called that, first of all, before you go on?
Um, Quibi actually the name came from me studying the founder of Glassdoor and Expedia and started to
Wow.
yeah I started to understand kind of how branding works on a mass level and started to
Mhm.
see how I could approach the word Quibi, and so that came from Quibi, QUI being quick, and then Bibby being ability. So quick and ability. So the whole goal with
Oh,
Quibi is to give people with
this is me
disabilities
helping
an
you.
opportunity
Yeah.
to find their resources quick, and then it also empowers them and giving them the ability to navigate their life like anyone else would. So that was the birth of Quibi and kind of why I
Well,
came.
hold on, because in order to be able to truly understand how phenomenal this is, you get to why we have this show in this podcast in the first place. Because your no came from what? You were doing work. You and I talked about it. When you first got the contracts, when you were first thinking about getting the contracts, we talked about you doing work for places like the Department of Labor, right, and some other federal agencies, coming in talking about disabilities, helping them with those issues. And then what happened?
So those connections that I developed through the Department of Labor, um, the FBI, the Department of Defense, Department of Justice, all of those agencies, those connections that I kept have always been sort of my guiding light and how to navigate that terrain. Um, but with the changing of tides, and I guess the changing of the oligarchs, if you will,
Why we're here. This is why we're here.
I had
Yeah.
to mindset from being in the government and then hybrid also in corporate because as you know I also did work with corporate, so it's sort of a hybrid of corporate and government.
Mhm.
And
Because that was shut down.
yep, yep,
Okay, because that was shut down with the executive order that was issued
yep,
on January 20th, Inauguration Day,
yep,
2025. You had to go to Plan B.
yep. And
Okay.
Because
so
And
diversity is
Plan B,
about all people. Diversity is about all people, including including people with disabilities. And as soon as you start shutting people out, you've just immediately stopped the people with disabilities because they're not even going to be looked at. And now we're talking about people who don't have the resume either, who are
Right.
able to pull people. Yeah.
And our basic question is always, what does whatever have to do with DEI? So for you, what does disabilities, people who are differently able, what does that have to do with DEI? And look what happened with you. That was shut down in the federal government as if it did not matter anymore. What are you going to do about disabled? Those people that you were working with, what do they now do to get that information? Or can they even get that information about this part of the community that they serve, either as employees or people that they give out their services to? That was gone.
Yeah.
And that left you out in the cold, and you were looking to figure out, what do I do now? And what did you do? You came up after research with the idea of Quibi. Unbelievable.
That's
Unbelievable.
That's exactly how
What did
how
It really is. I mean, it is extraordinary that you did that, which just goes to show, just because you're differently able does not mean toss you out like you a piece of trash. Don't deal with trying to figure out how you can fit into this picture, because you have things to offer. You were trying to tell them, and that was interesting, because it was like you were just trying to tell these agencies how to deal with these issues based on their request for it, which they no longer do. And now what do you have? You got the world asking you through your app about them.
Right. So what has happened, what you're saying, Androni, is the suppression of one thing led to an emergence of something else, which is even bigger than you had imagined, more than you had been trying to go after. It's bigger because now everybody gets to see you. You know, federal government agencies are great if you want to stay there. But if you want to expand, which you have to, because your audience is more than half the population of this world, because people go in and out of disabilities, you know, like a car crash, right? And people are temporarily disabled, but it's disability nonetheless. And people will get to understand now how it is to have things that you need, but you can't get them. But with your app, not only is it quick, as you said, but it's about people who have the need for people to help them because they can't help themselves in certain situations.
exactly.
Beautiful.
I think to your point, Renee, um, Quibi is something that is a twofold type of thing, right? Obviously, it came out of my frustration, but it's not built for me. It's actually built to go against what is considered the norm, right? I don't want people with disabilities assuming just because it's made in the vein of people with disabilities, it's only for us.
No.
It's for people with family members who have disabilities, but they themselves may not experience it.
So
So
an even bigger audience. Yes.
Yeah. Right. You've expanded your reach.
So
The
tell
butterfly
people what. Oh, I'm sorry. And
I
after
was just
this,
saying
tell people.
is real. And as you call it,
Yeah.
able differently, I call it able to disable. We're saying the same thing, but it's just about play on the words that people have decided to assign to us
Mhm.
and use it to our empowerment, which is exactly why we have this podcast.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like I said, I mean, when you think about even the use of words, right? Um, you can you can sometimes get tied down into the words, and they can affect your progress, right? Like no one will look at me because I have a disability. No one will give me an opportunity because I'm not like everyone else. I need to work harder because I'm this, I'm that. I'm behind the eight ball, or I'm behind because of this and that. I think what people have to understand about having a disability is you become resourceful, so much so that you start to identify opportunities to do paradigm jumps, right? So
Yes.
I did a couple paradigm jumps that put me in an opportunity to go from uh, not knowing to now becoming someone who is requested to teach, just because I was willing to jump the paradigm from
Right.
feeling sad or feeling like I wasn't capable or inadequate to,
Yeah.
well, I got something to say, and all I gotta understand how to do is package it, and then somebody might listen, and so
And we had those conversations, didn't we?
oh, we did.
Where you were not sure what you were going to do. And it's like, Kadon, you have so much to say. And think about what that ended up doing. And what we did not tell our listeners and viewers is that Kadon is in his office. Now, think about all the stuff that he just said. Aside from that, he is in his office at a school where part of his plan B came into action because you are there now providing those services for them. So not only do you have the app that allows people to get services that for those who are differently abled, and we'll have you tell us about the four parts of that, but you are also this question of, how are you doing, Dom? Before we did this at the beginning, we were like, what you been up to? And as it turns out, he's in his office. We're trying to get the lighting straight, and it turns out he's in some office where he's now teaching in school. So he's in,
Right. Oh, and so yeah,
Uh,
I'm in my office at the university.
and
I
I'm
had
like,
to come out
school?
and
What school? What are you doing in
you
the
know, so
school? And it's like, oh well, I
yeah,
what?
it was just
Like,
you know,
that conversation
something
we
new.
had, trying to work it out.
A major discovery here.
no, thank you.
Sure.
Well, the way that came about was I was actually at the university, so on the second floor, and a lady was in the elevator, and I was just running my mouth, and I was like, "Hey, where are you going?" Because I always used to see the fifth floor and everybody pressing it and having an ID card. Where are you going? She was like, "Oh, I'm going to the fifth floor." I said, "What's up there?" And she's like, "Oh, that's a building for entrepreneurs." I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna follow you." She looked at me like, "What?" I was like, "I'm gonna follow you." And so I followed her, and she asked me what I did, and I told her, and she was like, um, "Oh, okay." And she just kind of left it cold. And she asked me for my email while I was in the elevator. Um,
This is, and I don't want people to miss this. This was an elevator conversation with a complete stranger.
Which is
You
why they
never
always
know what
say
the
to have your
universe has in play
speech
for you.
ready. They say to have your elevator speech ready, right? And you literally were in the elevator.
that's how it happened.
Kadon.
And so
So
I
you
was talking
were
with her, and I think like 6 months
literally.
went on, and I got an email from Florida Power and Light, FPNL, and my name right at the top. Congratulations, you've been sponsored by us and Nova University, and we want to give you
What?
all of the resources to build your business. So basically, that's it.
So that's how you got the resources to build the app?
No, that's how I got the office space. How I got
Okay.
the how I got the resources was different to build the app. But as far as a place to go to use resources, mentorship, mentoring events, networking opportunities, that was how I got that.
And it's interesting because I did work for them years ago when I lived in Florida, and that's been 36 years
Oh,
ago. I
wow.
did one of my favorite quotes comes from that company, and it was about disabilities. I was doing just a general employment law
Mhm.
seminar for them. And as it turns out, they gave me one of my best quotes about disabilities. I am loving it
Thank
that
you.
you have been sponsored by them to develop what it is you want to do.
Mhm.
Okay, what's that quote, first of all? And um,
Well, let me preface it by saying, aren't we glad that we learn and grow? Okay, because this was 3 decades plus ago. But I was dealing with everybody, all top managers in the company, and when we got to disabilities, he was sort of perturbed. He's like, "Look, I go to lunch every day downtown. I don't see people rolling around in wheelchairs all over the place." And I was like, "Okay, first of all, you need to know that in the preface to the legislation, that itself said that there were 48 million Americans being left out. The preface to the Americans with Disabilities Act. I said, so this didn't just come out of nowhere, right? And not all disabilities are people rolling around in chairs. No, I mean, that are
Yes.
yeah, most of them you can't even see. But that was a part of the learning curve. It was close to when the law had just passed. People just did not know. And I always, there's a difference between you don't know, because we can teach you. And I know, but I don't give a crap. Okay. That's a different thing. I assume that if you're doing what you're doing that is not consistent with the law, that it's because you don't know. Because most people don't want to just disobey the law. If nothing else, they don't want the consequences, right? So this was a wonderful learning opportunity, and I was so glad that he said that. And I loved who it was because it was the head of the whole thing. And you would have thought he knew better, but he didn't because of the messages in his head growing up about who the disabled were, right? And as it turned 40 something years later, 30 something years later, they're sponsoring you for disability stuff. I love it. We learn and we grow. When you know better, you do better.
Well, to that, Andre, I have a personal story to tell and interject here in this conversation. Whether it makes it in, I don't know. I managed lots and lots of people, because I managed call centers. My call center, though, is about research, and research has to be very specific, exact. You cannot deviate, or else you change answers or responses, and that is a no-no. So I had someone apply that was blind. And I said, no, they can't do this job because they have to read what is on the screen in front of them. And they kept saying to me, yeah, well, we can make it happen. We can make it happen. I said, I don't believe that, because how can you make something like that happen when she cannot see the screen? They made it happen.
They made it happen.
They made it happen. And not only did they make it happen, she was one of my best performers.
Yes.
If I had a team to get together today, I would ask Lorena to come and be on my team because she was dedicated. She was always there, always on time, never taking a break more than she needed or was offered. It was just like the best employee, and also the best quality assurance reports, the best responses for, since we did research, we needed not just an okay or an agreement, we needed the responses to come in. And she was our high performer in responses. This is, I can't say enough about it. I learned a lesson. And then later on, I found myself in the very same position. And I
love this. This is, oh my God, this is so awesome.
For that.
And it just goes to show you too, Renee, we are all in learning mode.
Always.
You can't know what you don't know. The thing is to leave yourself open to learning. And you did that, even though it was forced. But when that happened, it taught you a lesson that's still with you to this day.
Yes.
I love it.
What Renee, if you may, what happened to her? Like, what was the issue? Why did they?
She was not an issue at all. It was the company we endured a hurricane here in Texas. I'm in Texas. We endured a hurricane that closed our office because it was just decimated the building. And it was a call center. So we had to be physically, at that time, you had to be physically there. And because of that lesson, we learned to do a disaster recovery implementation of how to continue business. So, which turns into, first is disaster recovery, then it turns into business continuity. And part of the business continuity was we need to get people who can work from home. That was in 2008. Okay. And then I had a team by 2010, and she was the first person I chose to be on that team because she was part of a business that did well. And she was also without a job because we closed the office because we couldn't open. So when I got to put together a team of people to do work from outside of the brick and mortar that we were in, she was my first choice. I knew she could do it. And she was fantastic, like I told you. Fantastic. Can't say enough. So if you don't sleep on people who you think can't do the job, because you lose in the end.
Yeah.
To make sure that you are ready, like I said, I'm doing it, you are open to, even if it's forced, still you have a job to do. I had a job to do, so I had to make it work because it was working, right? So I had to make it work. And the best part of it was that I learned a lesson and I got in there with it. So when it came time for me to need services, I knew where to go.
Makes sense.
Which, of course, brings us back to Kibby.
Yeah, it reminds, yeah, no, it reminds me of something, a training I did for the Department of Labor. Basically, the impetus of it was trust but verify. A lot of people can see a disability, but you can't verify because you see a disability. They can't do what they say they can do. So I think perception is like perception is fundamental when it comes to understanding that your own perception can be the biases that cause you to see things through a limited filter.
Right.
Absolutely. And the simplest thing, of course, which many people miss, is just if they've told you that they have a disability and you tell them, you let them know what the job requirements are. And you ask them if this is something they can do. And they can tell you, they are the ones who know what their disability is more than anybody else, or how they're differently abled to be able to do it. So they can say, well, I can do this, but I need this. I can talk on the phone, but if you have a program that allows it to read the screen for me, then I'd be able to do it, right?
Yes.
Or if you can amplify the microphone that I'm dealing with, or just ask them. And very often they don't. They walk around with the ideas that are already in their head from the messages they've picked up over a lifetime, and they assume you can't do this if you can't read the screen. But you don't know what it's like for somebody who hasn't read the screen, who's not been able to read the screen, and has had to go through life in a different way.
Right.
That's why I'm able to ask them what they can do, and if there's modification that can be made that you can work with. Okay, because the law says you can only do it to the extent it does not cause undue hardship on the company, right? And very often, the vast majority of adjustments are really small things, very small things that wouldn't, hurt business at all. It's just that nobody ever thought about doing them, which is why you use your.
Nor do they think about doing it because it actually means you take care of everybody if you just do it. So why do we need to have handicap bathrooms? Why do they have to be, or accessibility bathrooms? Why does there have to be, and include, I'm older, so I'm learning different language too. Sorry about the handicap comment, but you have to be ready to tackle the issues as they stand. And the people who can help you figure that out are the people you're trying to figure it out for. And if you put that in place, you don't need to worry about using the handrail in the bathroom if you don't need it. But if you need it, it should be there. That's all we're saying.
Who's going to say, "Oh, these doors are too wide for me to walk through"? If you don't have a wheelchair, I mean, nobody cares, right? The doors are wider, a wheelchair can go through, and you can walk through as well.
I think also too sometimes there's this set of beliefs, if you will, that never been questioned.
Yes.
So basically, the old information that exists is always going to stay alive and well because nobody wants to stress test it. Nobody wants to see if it actually has the ability to move with the times. Um, as the old adage goes, the good suffers for the bad. So that's essentially the same thing when you think about the changing of, the lens of disability. The old information, the old things that no longer serve are a hindrance to what can be done to improve the lens of disability.
Mm-hmm.
And
It's okay to have those old thoughts that have never been challenged because you've never had the opportunity. But once the opportunity presents itself, it's really important to listen to the new.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody hating on you because you did not know this. It's just when you know or when the opportunity presents itself,
Mhm.
go ahead and listen. You
Yeah.
haven't had the opportunity to have to think about it before. Now that you do, and you're faced with something that may need that new input that you don't have, listen to it.
Yeah.
Listen.
Exactly. It's also too. It's also too like getting away from the emotional sting of like saying something about it and you feeling that possible, oh, I could be rejected for this, or I could face backlash, right?
Mm, very important piece.
If you
Yeah.
the emotional sting, or I guess metastasizing the monsters in your head,
Hmm.
Mm.
start to do what's practical, what's useful to get the job done.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, about disability, people know what to do. They don't do it because they've already metastasized the monster in the head, and so they're like, "Hell with this! It's too much work. I'm gonna get backlash if I really step out and say something." So I'll basically go with the go with the crowd and basically just turn a blind eye. But you know, behind the scenes, they're also suffering because they're like, "I could have done something," right? There are a lot of people that
Thank
I
you.
yeah,
That's
there
Yeah.
a huge piece.
yeah, there are a lot of people that I've specifically worked with who are in positions of authority. Like you, Mrs. Dawn, you are in a position of authority. You've been in a position of authority for a long time, right? A senior writer from McGraw Hill, that's a position of authority. You've been, an attorney, always in a position of authority. You are one of the people that stood in the gap, right, and said something and didn't really care about what retribution would come behind it. You knew the cause that you were fighting for was bigger than you, and you were willing to sacrifice whatever was perceived as valuable from a employment standpoint or from a monetary standpoint. You didn't think about that. You thought about a bigger cause, and I think people can do that. They often don't. They always pit, how does my reality change, to
Yeah.
how will my life improve if I do this? And oftentimes when that happens, you get stuck in this tight spot and don't know what the decision to make when you know you could make a decision. And you got other people like you who are outliers, who are in these systems, see how these systems work, and like, look, if I can't teach you how to infiltrate, learn, and vacate, I'm gonna teach somebody else that wants to learn how to infiltrate, learn, and vacate, right? So I was fortunate in meeting you because you taught me, oh, look, this is how you infiltrate, learn, and vacate these spaces that
Mm.
they want you, they don't know how to receive you though. So how do you polish yourself in a way where they see you, want you, and receive you? And
Mhm.
that's getting away from your emotion and realizing like the mission that you're trying to accomplish is one you can accomplish. You just have to understand how to equip yourself. And so that's being a consummate learner. That's somebody who's always, on the edge of what's happening, understanding trends and how to package yourself. And like I said, previously, taking those paradigm jumps, right? Going from thinking like, how do I solve a problem to, okay, I see a problem. I'm gonna equip myself to solve the problem. Then I'm gonna go solve it. Oftentimes we
Mhm.
want to solve the problem, but we miss the piece of I'm not equipped to solve the problem. So now what you do is you become a talking head. You just talk because he's like, I want to solve a problem. But when you get put into these rooms and you're there, you don't know what to do.
Really good.
So
Yeah.
what you do is you further you further multiply their frustration. It's like, we gave you a chance to educate us on disability, but when you came into the room, you didn't make nobody
Mhm.
do nothing.
Yeah.
So you further again cause annoyance because like we spent money on trying to get this thing rectified. We put you in position, and now nothing, right? So it's not about just solving a problem. It's solving a problem, being equipped and understanding how the problem needs to be solved and going back to solve the problem and making sure the problem in the way you solve it is repeatable so it can be taught back.
So you need a marketing strategy.
Yeah, not making sure that you do that, right? Rather than thinking about yourself and the impact on you, my career, what this might happen. Although, you want to handle that too. But what's the best way to be able to do it while still forwarding that cause? What I always care about is what this does to somebody else. What happens if I don't speak up? What happens to the people who have something to bring to the table and I don't say anything to bring people's attention to it, so it just passes? I can't live with that. I'd rather live with having you look at me like, why don't you sit down and shut up? Because I'm not going to do that. Okay. It makes sense to me that those who could stand in that gap do it. And I understood that part of what the universe did was it made it so even though I was in academia, I was a lawyer first. I could always go back to practicing law. If y'all don't like it, you don't want to give me tenure, you want to throw me out, I could always go back to practicing law. That put me in a different position, but I also knew that that meant I was also speaking for people who did not have that same kind of, for lack of a better word, security, which was sort of insecure altogether. But there are some things I'd rather deal with than not. I'd rather deal with being terminated because I stood in the gap, as opposed to trying to live with myself for being there, staying there, and I didn't do that. That's too much for me to bear. I'd rather take the other and look out of it.
Yeah, I have a revelation to admit to that I didn't see it that way before. I didn't realize until you were talking, Kadon, that I was standing in the gap of the company. I thought I was standing in the gap of the company, not having or that to make sure that the company didn't have to endure any kind of negative reprisals because we hired someone that potentially could not do the job. And that because we were monitored by another governing agency that things had to be a certain way. So, and that would, in my head, that was going to make it so that we would have a hard time meeting our contractual requirements and ethical requirements as a company. But I was putting forward that attitude, my own mental thoughts about it, because I thought I was protecting the company. Why am I protecting them? They should be protecting their employees, not the other way around. So I just had that revelation, just had to say it. The other thing,
Well, you're management. That's what your expectation is, that you're going to be.
yeah, but I mean, sometimes,
You want to protect the company. It's
Mhm.
just that, you see both sides of that. Protecting the
now,
company is also in protecting the employees. Yeah. But it
I,
makes sense that that's what you would have been thinking as a managerial employee.
I get it.
That makes perfect
I hate
sense.
it at the same time. Even though I get it, I don't like it. And I guess that's why your job, Kaden, is to decide that you wanted to go into entrepreneurial work is really significant because you get to shape things now in a way that, like I was just admitting, I had an obligation to hold up a certain standard where
Mhm.
you're creating standards. You are making sure that people using, the laws that are on the books for the Disability Act, but you're making sure that people are held account to that, not by saying, I'm going to sue you, you didn't do what I said. You are being proactive and you're
Mhm.
making sure that people have the tools they need to present themselves as a whole human being
Mhm.
to a company or whatever facility you're talking about dealing with. Um, and they would be looked at for what it is that they need, not for what it is that we want them to fit into. Beautiful.
Right.
I
Exactly. And thank you. I think, like I said, when I think about Quibi, Quibi is not built to cause strife or discontentment in anyone. It's to let people know, like, okay, we see where we're essentially limited, right? But give us the opportunity to equip ourselves with the tools so you can change the lens of how you see us, right? Quibi is
Yeah.
what it's meant to be, which is a digital companion to empower people with disabilities to move how they should and get their autonomy back, right?
Mm.
Whether that be individuals, that be institutions, or that be just family members that want to empower their loved ones by saying, hey, I don't have to be around you 24/7 because you have your digital companion that can do the things that I would have to manually do research, talking to doctors, medicine research as far as what you need, making sure somebody's there to take care of you, home aid help, nurse, or anyone. You have that
Okay.
as a companion to
Yeah, and
support you. So
And you said there were 4 pillars to it?
yeah,
4
so
pillars
yeah,
4
so
pillars to the Quibi?
yeah, so there's 4
Uh,
pillars. So
okay.
so Quibi is there's 2 parts of Quibi. So there's Quibi, whereas you, the individual with the disability or the family member would see, right? And there's Quibi Pro, where service providers can come onto it and pick up certain jobs. For example,
Mm.
with the Quibi section, like I said, the individuals from the uh, app looking for support, they can go on and see the Quibi side. Service
provider
providers want to
care, provider
go ahead.
care is that provider care, physical therapy, occupational,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff.
Right, so that would be a service that would be services, and that would fall under the Service Pro, right, or Quibi Pro section.
Okay.
That portion of it would be different for a viewer if you are a service provider. So if you're a nurse and you want to, say, pick up a couple extra shifts, you could go onto the Quibi Pro side and see tickets where individuals on the Quibi side are saying, "We need a nurse that deals with, for example, um, cleaning, right? Who can clean that individual. That service provider then connects with that individual that's looking for that service, and they basically create a mutual relationship before a home visit is initiated. Once a home visit is initiated, then the relationship starts to build on itself, where now they come in and want to work together. Um, and then once that happens, you have that service provider become your nurse who takes care of you. So there's that. So
Do
that would be the
they communicate through the app, or do once the relationship has been solidified, do they
Mhm.
fall off the app and
No,
they just communicate with each other, or
no, no,
how does
no,
that work?
no. You can. So it has to be a mutual agreement. So there's going to be a bio, for example, on the individual looking for the service, and then there's going to also be a bio on the service provider offering the service, right? So think of it like
Mhm.
speed dating. No one is going to be connected with each other until the speed dating is agreed. Like, oh, I'd love to work with this person based on their bio, based on what we know about them from what we've read, right? Same thing for the service provider. If the individual with the disability is looking for them, they're going to be able to look and see, like, oh, I like this person. I like what they have to offer. I want to communicate with them, right? So you'll have an option to communicate with them via text message, like in the app, or email, or you can have a phone or video conference, right? And what
Mhm.
we essentially will employ you do is have witnesses or individuals accompany you, so there's sort of like an interview both sides. So
Got
Mm.
the provider is being
it.
interviewed, and then
Mhm.
the individual with the disability is also being interviewed by the service provider, and you all come to a consensus. Oh, I'd like to work with this person, or I won't. And then you have an option to go to another service provider because their service provider is picking up tickets all the time. So that's how Quibi and Quibi Pro works. Now, to the 4 pillars, there's independent living. So, like I said before we got on the podcast, that's for individuals that live autonomously on their own and are looking for their house to be outfitted with
Mhm.
accessible devices or
Yeah.
accessible features. Like, to your point, Renee, if you wanted a grab bar, you can again go on to the service provider version of the app, and you can see a service provider who has the ability to build out those grab bars in bathrooms. You can send them a message, or they can pick up the message from the rolling list of opportunities they'll see, and they'll be able to do that grab bar installation for you. So that's the independent living facilities,
Yeah.
independent living portion of it. So qualified doctors is essentially you being able to connect with clinics, outpatient clinics, rehabilitation clinics, different hospitals to help you be able to aggregate the information necessary to help you find a particular doctor for your particular ailment or disability without going to a litany of doctors and not knowing which one to go to, or being
Right.
sent to one and then being told, "Oh, we don't offer your service." Um,
Yes.
you also have the opportunity to roll up into different service providers based on the disability and the type of resources they have for said disability, as far as a doctor, nurse practitioner, um, physician of any discipline. That's the qualified doctors. Qualified insurance, essentially, same thing like qualified doctors, where you have different service providers that have different insurance opportunities that you might not be privy to, but they are. So you
Mm.
can,
And this is the third pillar, the qualified insurance.
yeah, so you can
Okay.
go to the insurance portion of the app and look at insurance providers and say, oh, these insurance companies or this particular insurance company offers my particular need,
Mm.
right? And you speak to them depending on the tier of the mobile app you're on. So if you're on the basic or freemium model, you can speak to them. If you're on the premium model, you have your own personalized case manager or case navigator that'll speak on your behalf,
That's wow.
right? And then the
And
last portion,
doctors at that point.
yeah, and the
Okay.
last portion is um, enterprise. So if they wanted to work with certain providers, for example, they would have the access to work with certain providers from an enterprise level where they could have certain case managers come into the institution and educate individuals inside those organizations that have disabilities on the different features and opportunities that exist for them as from an insurance standpoint. So
Wow.
then,
Of everything.
yeah, then government,
Darn.
yeah, um, government grants um, and government assistance is essentially us helping you streamline the information to get the government grants to get you the resources you need.
Mm.
Because, I've worked in the government and in different agencies, I see how fragmented it is. So I told myself, I was like, if I'm gonna build something that has to do something with the government, I'm gonna do
Mm.
something that can lead towards information purity, which means basically once everybody knows, right? There's no
Right.
more gatekeeping and, you know, withholding information only for people with opulence, or a level of wealth that can afford it. Once I know or once Quibi knows, it's now information purity, right? And like I said, from a basic standpoint, you're gonna get that
Wow.
information. From a premium standpoint, we're gonna do it for you. And so going
Wow.
back to the medical part of it, I actually was chasing up the vice president of technology for Memorial Hospital, and I got as far as his EA. And as anyone knows in business, if you chase somebody up and they're busy, you're probably not gonna hear back. Um, I didn't hear back, but as faith would have it, I walked into Dunkin' Donuts and I was doing
Oh,
surveys. Yeah, yeah, I was,
no.
yeah. No, I walked into Dunkin' Donuts, and I was doing surveys, and I was literally in front of the lady. I was ordering my breakfast, and I looked behind me and I saw a lovely couple sitting behind me. I was gonna go walk up to them and have them do a survey, or at least try to pitch them the opportunity to do a survey. Walked up to the lady. I asked the lady to do the survey. I told her what I was trying to do, and she was like, "I'd love to do it." So she was such a sweetheart. She did the survey, and I literally told myself, I was like, "Oh, I'm 1 for 1. Let me see if I can go 2 for 2." So I was walking back out to Dunkin' Donuts. This is a true story. I can't make it up. Um, I walked out the door, and I saw a group of men. And I walked up to the men. I said, "Gentlemen, I know you don't want to be cold approached by a perfect stranger, but I promise you, if you give me 5 seconds of your time, you might want to listen." They listened. They all did the survey. One of the gentlemen out of the group pulled me away from the group. I was like, "Damn, why did he pull me away from the group?" Because I was nervous. 'Cause I was like, "Why you want to pull me away from the group?" And I was just talking to the group. Like, whatever you gonna say to me, you say to the group. They your friends, not mine. Um, and then he says, "I have an interest in what you're doing." I said, "Okay, well, I appreciate that." Um, and he was like, "I have a daughter with a disability." So I was like, "Oh, I need like your feedback to be sent to me directly because we have aggregated email for surveys, so I don't see them. But his I
Mm,
want to see because he's my ideal customer because he also has a daughter with a
yeah.
disability." So he was like, "Have you ever thought about bringing it into a hospital?" I said, "You know what's funny? About like 2 weeks ago, I was chasing up the VP of technology for Memorial Hospital, and I got as far as to the EA, but she left me cold. And I don't know what to do about it." So he started laughing. He was like, "Oh, I work for Memorial." Excuse me? So by this time, I'm thinking I got my foot in my mouth. I'm like, "Why'd you do that? Just be quiet."
You
Um,
just told the truth. That was
yeah,
only the truth.
no, I told the truth, but
I
I'm like,
think
"Oh my
you
gosh,
got
I
it.
put my foot." I was like, "I put my foot in my mouth again. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna lose the chance to
He
speak to
said
this guy."
again.
So he says, "I have a particular interest in this." I said, "Oh, okay, cool. Can I get an email?" He said, "I'm scratching emails. Take my numbers." "What? Take your number?"
What?
I'm like, "What?" But remember, I don't know what he does. So
Yeah,
I'm still skeptical because I'm like, "Oh, you gonna give me a number? You work for the hospital. All right, cool. No problem. I'm taking your number."
custodian.
So I'm chasing him up, chasing him up. I had a bright idea one day. Kadon, why don't you do a LinkedIn research of this guy, right? I look at his name and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna do a LinkedIn research. So I go on LinkedIn, I look his name up, and business intelligence with 35 years of experience. Long story short, I find out he's the one who basically stand in the court of law under oath to erect all 6 of the hospitals, and basically was and is the head of the hospital's business intelligence team and signed off on the paperwork to actually get all the hospitals built, all 6 of them. So now I'm nervous because I'm like, okay, wow, he built all 6 of the hospitals, not even one, it's all 6 of them. So I go to the guy um, to email and I'm like, all right, what do I say to this guy? Because now I know what he actually does and who he is. So I said, "Can I have a meeting with you?" I chased him up for weeks, for weeks, for weeks. I chased him, and one day he just texts me out of nowhere. He goes, "Meet me at my office at 1 o'clock." And I'm like, I don't know what to tell this guy. I'm gonna basically, I'm gonna pitch the vision of what I'm trying to do. So I
Mhm.
pitched the vision, and I asked him. I said, "Hey, can I ask you a can I make a crazy request?" And he goes, "Yeah." I said, "Could I roll this out into the hospital?" He said, "No, no, 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 no. Roll it out into all 6 of them."
No, 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 not the one. We need all 6. Oh
And
my gosh. So he's already researched you, found out what is going on. He heard your pitch, and he finds that this is
mhm,
something that fits their business model.
yeah, so I rolled it in. I'm rolling it. I'm starting to roll it in all 6 of the hospitals. Um, a good a family member of mine's, he and I are friends, but he's family to me because I've known him for so long. He introduced me to his friend who works for Mount Sinai. I also pitched him the idea, so we're in talks with that. And then the last one, most recently, was Emory in Atlanta.
Mhm.
And so the independent living
Wow.
section, like I said before we jumped on the podcast, was the first one that I wanted to work on. And then
I'm
the
doing this.
medical the medical portion of the app just kind of just took off. And now I'm most days in my office. Like if I spin my camera, you'll see my brother sitting on the table and I'm on the wall literally. Um, just building quickly because it now it's taking off and I have to kind of meet the demand basically. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Yes.
To think about you going from our conversations to this, where you did not know, like, how do I get into an agency? What should I do? And then that shut down. And, you moved to be closer to it. You sort of weren't quite sure what you were doing. And to now, I hope you understand how your steps are ordered, even though you do not see them before you take them. Okay, that's the way the universe works with you. And the things that you have done to position you are all given to you because that's what you were sent here to do. So they make it happen. What you talk about just resonates on so many levels. It is so inspirational, especially for people who find themselves in difficult situations, which can be real easy to do if you're differently able because the world doesn't see you in terms of your fullness, right? So for you to be an example of how it may not go the way you originally planned for it to go, but the way that it goes is the way it's supposed to go, and to be able to see the light in those dark times and to know that there may well be something better for you out there. And you walked into it. All you was going to get some breakfast.
Yeah.
Okay, you happen to have some of your things and wanted people to do it.
It just happened because that's what luck is. Preparation, meeting, opportunity. You were
Well,
prepared. You were
yeah,
ready.
I think, and I remember when I was working with Yahoo on the corporate side, one of the senior directors, senior accessibility lead, told me, he said, "I don't know how you got me to write you. I may have just liked your message because I wrote him like 2 o'clock in the morning." I was like, "Ah, you probably just couldn't sleep and you just decided to give yourself something to do and you wanted to entertain me. And that's how I met you." He told me, he said, "Kadon, luck favors the prepared." Um, but this isn't the first time this happened to me. In fact, how I got into the Department of Labor, I was walking behind a guy when I used to work for Lowe's, and he was like 6'5". He looked like he was a football player. It's like, man, it's a big dude. Have you ever had like intrusive thoughts that you said out loud?
I try to keep that at bay.
No. Yeah, so I
Sometimes they sneak through.
You all the time.
yeah, so
Yes.
I
Go
was walking
on.
behind him. I was walking behind him and I said, "Hey man, can I borrow your body to go on a date with my girlfriend later today?" That's literally that's literally what I said.
Oh my God.
That's literally what I said. That is
Done.
that is literally what
Oh my God.
yeah, that's literally what I said. Um, and he turned around and started laughing, and I was like, "Ah, man, thanks for laughing. It's free." I was like, "What do you do?" And he was like, hesitant. I was like, "I'm gonna guess." He was like, "You're gonna guess? You think you can guess?" I said, "I'm gonna take a shot." I said, "What I know is statistically, people who are taller are usually in positions of authority." And he said, "Okay." I said, "Either you like my conversation or you're good with people." I said, "I'm not gonna guess that you play for the NFL because you don't." Because he told me he don't. And I was like, "You probably work with the government." So I saw his eyebrow like go up, and I was like, "Oh, and I said, "I'm right, aren't I?" He's like, "Yeah, how'd you know?" I said, "Because I saw your eyebrow just flinch when I said that." Um, I was like, "Who do you work for?" Like hesitant. He was hesitant. He was like, "Oh, can you guess that?" I was like, "Probably." And I was like, "You work for the Department of Labor?" He was like, "Yeah, I do."
Out
And
of all the government agencies, why would you say DOL?
it was instinct.
Okay, I'm scared of you.
Yeah, it was
Listen,
instinct.
I believe in ancestral
You
information being popped into your verbiage, and you say words out of your mouth that you didn't think, and all of a sudden it's like a whole conversation. You stood in the you did it. You listened. You listened.
And it was instinct. And then I find out like 2, 3 weeks later, like he's the head of the Department of Labor for government contracts.
unbelievable.
And then he was like, "Oh, we want to bring you into the Department of Labor." That's how I got the Department of Labor.
Unbelievable, except that it is absolutely believable with
Yeah.
you.
You remember I was telling you the whole process of how that happened. It was
Yes.
same thing with the FBI. I was literally working Lowe's. I was literally working at Lowe's.
Wait, the time that I was with the cartel? Yeah. Here's how it went. You know, the way that you drop in this information, Kadon.
That's true. It's
That's
You
Kadon.
know about when I was with Spider-Man? Oh, let me tell you about that.
yeah. No, I know it sounds so hard to believe, but
No,
that's why
it sounds hard to believe. It's the way you present it. It's just almost as if, you know, I was just walking down the street one day and the Department of Labor said, "Hey,
yeah,
you," and then I was ready. I was prepared. You know, the way you make it sound is like it's just that. It's just a little warm. It's a little melty. It's a little hands-on, and most people don't describe these kind of meetings like that.
yeah, but the thing is, Renee, I'm preparing in the back, right? Like I always tell myself, an educated fool will always be the distracted genius. So I'm preparing in the back. Like you guys don't. I mean, you guys know me personally, but when you don't see me, I'm preparing in the back. So when I get into those rooms or I come into these conversations, they understand later. Like, okay, we placed the bet on this young man, and our bet's gonna actually win because I don't overpromise. I in fact do the opposite. I underpromise and overdeliver.
That's what Renee is talking about in terms of how you present. It's like, oh, it was just this little thing, and it's like that was huge.
Yeah. So
So
because I never
FBI, you want to know about the FBI? Oh, let me tell you about the CIA.
yeah. Funny.
Yeah, no,
No, no. I think I think the way that even happened, serendipitous for sure, but um, I'm in alignment with what I'm doing. So these things that are happening to me, they're not happening to me out of coincidence. They're
right.
happening out of just the fact that I'm prepared.
Doing what you were sent here to do.
Yeah, I'm prepared. And so that's the same thing that happened with the FBI. I literally was walking into Lowe's and I looked at a lady and I literally walked up to her. I said, "Ma'am, I hate to bother you, but you seem like you do something important, like you're trying to dress under the radar." And she was like, "What? Is that how you come up to people?" I said, "No, typically I usually say my name. I'm sorry. Like, my name is Kadon." And she started laughing. She's like, "You're funny." I said, "No, I'm like, but what do you do?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm an FBI agent." I was like, "Oh, I've been lied to, but not that fast." And she, "I'm not lying to you." She showed me her badge. I said, "Oh, I gotta go." And she was like, "What do you mean you have to go?" I said, "I'm so sorry. Like, what black man do you know talks to an FBI agent once he's been told he's an FBI agent? Like, nobody. I gotta go. Plus, I'm at work. They're gonna fire me, and you ain't gonna hire me. So, and I ain't gonna work for you people anyway." Um, and then,
A lot right there.
yeah, then I was nervous because I'm like, "Why you keep asking me about me, man? Like, all right, lady, go about your business now." Anyway, she was like, "Follow me." I said, "Ma'am, I just told you, no, don't no black man talk to an FBI agent once he's been told she's an FBI agent. And he darn sure don't go follow them when he know, like, I'm not following you, lady. Like, She said, "No, no, follow me." So um I was at register 7 walking to self checkout to go to the bathroom because that's where it was. She called the DC office and was like, "Oh, hey, uh, we just found a new expert for the disability um initiative that we're gonna run for the FBI. Um, I'm gonna send his information over so he can train us." That's how I got into the FBI.
Because
um,
that is scary how much this you are continuously told this is what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, yeah.
when I got in and I spoke to the unit chief, they was like, how did you know who that is?" I said, "Yeah, her name is Carice." And she was like, "No, no, no, no. That's not just any old, she's not even an FBI agent." I was like, "So what the hell is she?" She showed me a badge. I don't want to be in y'all facility talking about uh an agent basically not being an agent because you're impersonating law enforcement, and I'm not going to be the one to say that, like, because I'm already in the lines of out, if you will, because now I know, you know.
Mhm.
And she was like,
Right.
"Oh, no, no, she's certainly an FBI agent. She's the attorney for the entire FBI." So me and her, yeah. So that's how
Kadon,
that's kind of how
This
my name.
is who you
incredible,
are. This is who you are.
incredible. I
I'm glad
love
you're
it.
I'm glad you lean into it and you're not in fear
Oh,
of what
yes,
this power is, because it really is power. But
I
you
just
are
learned.
using your power for the right in the right way and for the right reasons. And influencing others is not a small thing. So you've been talking to people who are heads of departments, and they're just like, oh, sure, these are 5, 10, maybe 20 minute meetings. I mean, it's like, oh, well, let's just go ahead and give them the budget. It doesn't happen like
yeah,
that.
really. And here she sees him for 5 minutes, and all of a sudden he's got a contract. Unbelievable.
Yes,
And is
exactly.
worthy of it.
It's not that you're right, exactly. Not that they were misplaced in their decision, but it doesn't happen like that for everybody. I think the difference with you, Kaden, is that you're just so confident. You don't put airs on. You just give information, and hopefully there are people who are willing to grab it. According to
Yeah.
this discussion,
And
the
he's very humble as well.
university, the FBI. I mean, we're talking major departments that you
Yeah.
have.
Well, the whole goal is to never. The whole goal, honestly, Renee and Dawn, is never to be unreachable, right? One of my favorite philosophers once said, "I debate with my equals and others I teach." So I'm always looking for individuals that I know who have the same tenacity and the same depth of themselves to put themselves in precarious or uncomfortable situations to grow, right? A lot of these things I couldn't foresee, like in my reality, but I was working on me internally and making my load light so that when I got the opportunity to move, I had no baggage of my past stagnating me.
Wow.
So,
Don, tell our viewers and the audience, if you're willing to, why this differently abled, because it goes into that, and the fact that you would make that statement, how you got into this in the first place, because you had your own issues and you have a twin brother. And this is so profound because you didn't just grow up as somebody with a disability, you had a twin brother who did not have the same sort of disability. And because of that, this was an even, in some ways, worse journey for you, but in some ways better. It was better in the sense that you had something that you could look at and try to aspire to. Worse in the sense that you couldn't do what this other person who looked just like you could do. To me, that just makes your background even deeper, your commitment deeper, what it is that drives you deeper. Because it wasn't just the normal kind of, yeah, I think this is a nice issue for me to talk about. That's not where
yeah,
you're coming from
no,
at all with this.
yeah, no. So to your point, although I'm here, that's not where it started. So I was actually born with meningitis, paralysis. So I was paralyzed from the neck down. I didn't take my first step till I was about 8. Um, if you come from Caribbean parents or parents in general who have gone through something, they pick up a couple wisecracks throughout their life and journey of growing into womanhood and adulthood. My mom is one of those people. My mom has this expression she lives by and always have lived by, which is the best way to trick the devil is with a set of twins. Um,
The best way to what?
the best way to trick the devil is with a set of twins.
Oh,
Um, I didn't know what she meant when I was younger.
I've never
Um,
heard this before,
yeah,
but I
no,
understand.
I hadn't either.
no. What she was doing was she was conditioning my mind to see disability as a form of finding your zone of genius. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. So, like Mr. Dawn mentioned, I was born with an identical twin. So during my time of learning how to walk, what my brain was doing was what they call in neurology mirroring. So I was building up what they call the synaptic tissues around my nerves to create the nerve endings to basically strengthen them, which ultimately allowed me to take my first step at 8. Um, so the way my brother navigates the world is without a disability. So he navigates the world from his legs up, and I was taught how to navigate the world from my head down. So
Yeah.
everything was very cerebral for me in the beginning. So I had to learn how to use my thoughts and my
Right.
critical thinking skills to see above what is considered the norm or what is considered like like third dimension, because I had to learn how to influence people without having the ability to touch them. So I used my thoughts and my ability to communicate, effectively, hopefully, if everyone can understand me, um, to be able to put myself in positions that I wasn't able to at first. And so when I took my first step, my brain and my mind kind of work in concert together so I can think and do, as opposed to before I was just a thinker. So kind of that's how it started.
Kadon, unbelievable. That is so profound. So profound. And your mother, I don't, you talked about coincidences before, and I'm with you. There are no coincidences. Things are, in my understanding, in my interpretation of the world, things are provided for you. You can say yes or no, but it's no coincidence. And for you to have a mother who encouraged you in that way, and as opposed to seeing especially the difference between her two kids, right? Seeing it as a negative, she instead encouraged you in a way that would make you grow in the way that you could, right? You couldn't grow with your legs, but you could grow with your mind. As you well know, not everybody has that kind of wisdom, and kids have a very different experience. Yeah, yeah. And for you to be at some point, after 8 years of seeing your brother do what you could not do, for you to be able to do it. And think about that. All that time, your mind was growing because your legs wouldn't work to do what his could do. And then all of a sudden, you could. I'm not the least bit surprised that you would come to do this extraordinary thing that you have been doing, developing an app out of the blue that would help people that you knew not only on a visceral level, but through your own personal experience would need this kind of help. That is extraordinary. That is a benefit to the world, not just the US, even. It's just is a benefit to the world, and it came through you. Somebody who was differently abled and used that difference to help the world. Unbelievable.
Thank you. Thank you. I
Oh,
will remain humble.
You,
I'm sorry. Say that again,
well,
please.
I love it, but that was, I mean, you took that ball and ran with it.
Wait,
Oh
say
my
that again.
God.
Say that again. But Kadon, you said what?
No, no, I said I always will remain humble. I think
Okay.
what I'm here to do is ultimately uh, be a vessel. These things are things I think I I I possess for a period, right? These skills I possess for a period. I like to think that when I give these away to someone else or the person coming up underneath, they'll steward the gifts that was given to me because they too will have these gifts to use. So these are mine only temporarily. The things you see me build, the things you see me talk about, I know I don't possess them permanently, right? So I'm very conscious of using the gifts that were given to me by the universe, by God, um,
Yeah.
and doing what I can with them the best way I can to give them to someone else that will ultimately use them in a way that's just delightful and impactful, right?
Right.
These building an app, working with agencies, working in corporate, all those things,
Mm.
they're good for individuals to bathe in their ego. Um, but to be honest with you, Renee and Mrs. Dawn, I'm on a mission, right? And so that's what I've been steadfast on, my mission, right? So you
Mhm.
guys just kind of got the opportunity to talk to me while I'm at my rest stop, but I will journey along.
Yeah, but it's a good thing because that way, hopefully, you'll be able to use this as one of your calling cards for continuing your mission. I hope that happens because what you're telling everyone is that there's value if you just do a little bit of work in everyone.
That is a fact.
And yeah, and having an app, oh my God, that's the way Apple started off with. There's an app for that, right? Everything's an app for that, and you actually really have an app for that. Is your app available nationwide, globally? Where does it serve?
So because I'm catching a lot of traction, thankfully, very quickly, um, I always believe go locally before you go globally. So I'm starting in my home state, which is Florida, and then I will expand nationally, and then globally.
Well, you picked a great state considering that one of your interests is the independent living since everybody retires to Florida, right? Either
Right,
there
or
or
Arizona.
Arizona.
Arizona's a big one too.
That's
Yeah,
what I
They
said,
retire.
either there or Arizona.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
I
So
actually
that's a great testing
thought about
ground.
yeah, also thought about Arizona. I actually got an opportunity to do something for the government in Arizona. Um,
Las Vegas too is a good
yeah,
place.
Las Vegas as well.
It's a
But
good place.
like I'm fortunate, right? I have the privilege of knowing you. So, Renee and Mrs. Dawn, we'll collaborate and we'll
Yeah.
we'll pass and compare notes. So,
Yes, it will.
Kadon, thank you for your time.
you're
I
welcome.
am
It is
so glad
amazing
we caught
talking
up.
to you.
But whoa,
Yeah. Gosh, I can say
we
we
had
do
a
you
fun
win.
this
Yeah,
is
thank
awesome.
you.
And Renee has some questions before you leave us.
Sure.
Yes, I do. These are quick fire questions, and they're about you. So, what's your favorite
Right.
color?
I have three.
Oh,
Red, gold, and green.
Okay.
all right. I fit in with some people. What is your favorite movie?
I got a few, but I'll give you one. The Queen's Gambit.
Oh,
Mm, that's a good show. Did they come up with a season 2 yet?
I don't know, but I hope they do. It's about
I
it's basically the synopsis of it is it's about a girl who becomes a grandmaster in chess, and so I think about life in a lot of different ways. But one of the ways I kind of hang my hat on is making moves that's strategic. So I'm very much a chess player in the essence of how I move.
you have to make sure that you see our podcast issue that has Lemuel LaRoche, who has a TED Talk. He created an organization called Chess and Community, which is geared to teaching chess to young children for precisely that reason, so that they can learn about being strategic about their life plans.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's and yeah, he's very popular. Like yeah, I'm familiar. Very popular.
Oh, awesome. He is, I love him. He was only too glad to do the show in order to be able to spread the word about that. I love life.
right. Because there's a very different. There's tactical and there's strategic.
And
Right.
most
Sometimes they
people,
work, but the strategic part of it is what wins. You have to be willing to give up something to get more. but
Exactly.
you can doing the
That's what
job, you can
particular is
get that
for.
certification for yourself. Right. So gosh, that's fantastic. Okay, so Queen's Gambit, which I think I need to watch again because um and then anywhere you could go in the world, where would you go?
Am I just going to go, or is there a purpose for me going?
No,
You
just
just
you can
want to
go.
go have a good
You can
time.
go to the purpose if you want to, but otherwise, it's all your decision. What would you do?
Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
Addis Ababa.
Wow, I haven't had Ethiopia. I had a couple South Africans, Ghana, but not Ethiopian. Fantastic. Wonderful. Thank you so much for your insight
You're
and
welcome.
giving
Thank
us who you are and making this, gosh, this message is going to be powerful, really
It
powerful.
really is.
I'm
Yes.
just blown away. We got more than we had bargained for having you on today. I'm so excited for us. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Kadon. Thank you so much. And good luck.
Y'all keep me
Yes.
Of
posted.
course, I shouldn't even say good luck. Just keep doing what you're doing because the universe got you on this.
Right.
Thank you for that. From your
Okay.
lips to
They
God's
got
ears.
you.